Welcome to the Unforeseen Journey podcast with myself, Glenn Oliver. The intention of this podcast is to dig into my experiences of what is commonly referred to as the midlife crisis. I want to share with you my own journey as I unpick the why behind the what, in the hope that through these conversations it helps you to live a more intentional and fulfilling life. In the show, I want to share with you why I believe this is something we should all be talking about way more, in the hope that others who go through this are supported and able to navigate this incredibly challenging time in their lives. Thank you for taking the time to listen. Hey everyone, hope you're doing okay. So welcome to episode 6 of the Unforeseen Journey podcast. So this week, I named the episode "The Captain of the Sinking Ship," and we're going to get into another one of the big reasons why I think or believe that I've gone through this transitional phase in my life, which we're referring to as a midlife crisis. So first of all, I want to say thank you again for everyone who reached out to me after the podcast last week. It was a really tough thing for me to talk about and actually bring that out into the open and start talking about death in a really open way. And I guess there's probably some discomfort experienced by a number of people who reached out to me following that. So if that was you, then I'm sorry. But it was a conversation that I think that was worthy of having, because it's been such a big thing in my mind as part of this process. And as I kind of unpack it all and quite clearly share this journey as part of my own healing process, I wanted to put it out there in such a way to create things for you to think about, not to be all doom and gloom, but to make you consider what's going on in your life. So I hope from the discomfort and maybe the emotion that was brought up, there are some positives as well. So really, I guess, as I'm going into this, part of this journey for me as a coach, which you may be aware of or may not be aware of, is me transitioning into realizing what I want to do as a coach, because that's my title. That's what I believe I'm here for. And I'm really understanding that that's what that is now. It's not just about fitness. It's not just about nutrition. It's not just about daily habits. It's really helping people live a more fulfilling life. And I've got to own that. But the trouble is, and I had a call with one of my mentors, Carl, the other night, and he said something so similar. And it's like, he's kind of had this transition. It's so similar. Like, I was a fitness coach. I don't believe that's me anymore. I believe that's probably an aspect of what I do. And then, so the other side of that spectrum is probably what you'd say is a life coach. And for me, firstly, the connotations around life coaching and the image you conjure up for that are just, I don't know, they just get to me. They trigger me, for want of a better way to describe it. So I definitely don't see myself as a life coach. And, who am I to tell you how to live your life? And so I guess it's trying to find a title for that. And I don't really have one yet. So I guess I'm just going to say I'm a coach, and I'm a coach who helps you, or wants to help you build and realize who you are, the values you hold dear to yourself, and then design a life that aligns with those values. And I guess the analogy I thought of, which was quite fitting, is it made sense to me anyway. It's like, I want to kind of instill in you, I believe, like a solid operating system for living your life. But really, you are the architect on how you want to live that life. I give you the operating system, then you design the game. It's probably the best way to describe it, if that doesn't sound too convoluted. So yeah, that's what I'm leaning into right now, is trying to figure out my name as a coach. But really, that's what I do, right? So last week's been good personally. Took Addie to the cinema on Saturday, but unfortunately she's been poorly this week, some kind of tummy bug. If you've got a little one, they get ill all the time, which is not nice. I'm enjoying coaching at CrossFit Hayward Heath a couple of times a week. It's lovely for me to get out and actually see real humans in the flesh, and to get back in a way. It's funny because I'm saying that I'm growing from being this one coach to another, but there's still a part of me, like I still love the I don't know, the craft of coaching people through movement. It just feels like quite if you've got that kind of like the idea of the flow state, it feels very natural to me, I guess, after having done it for so long. So it's nice for me to be able to kind of be a bit of a chameleon, I guess you'd describe it as, and do both things, and to still do a bit of that as well. Still waiting for a date for my hernia op, double hernia op. So I've got to wait a while because I've got two. So it's going to take a while for them to get that done. But hopefully in the next 4 to 8 weeks, that will get sorted out. But until that's done, I kind of feel like my life is on hold a bit, but is what it is. So anyway, if you are enjoying the episodes and the podcast, please like and subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate that. If there's anyone you think would benefit from the subjects I talk about, then please encourage them to have a listen. Please, you can't force them, but hopefully that the things I'm going to talk about in these episodes, and especially some of the things today, if you know anyone who's in a high stress job or is a small business owner, then hopefully some of what I talk about today should be of benefit. And lastly, as I kind of lean into or grow into what this is, I want to share my intention with what the podcast should be every episode. It should be, I believe, something that leaves you with food for thought, with tangible kind of concepts and ideas that you can carry forward into your life. I don't just want to wallow in self-pity and share these stories with no kind of like outcome for you, because I think everyone wants to hear a story, the start, the middle, and the end, and the end has got to provide some kind of like some thought for you. It can't just Danny Downer. You're not going to continue to listen, are you? So hopefully as I continue to figure out what this is, I'm building more structure around every episode, spending more time preparing it, that will become clear. So bear with me as I continue to try and figure that out. So what is the subject matter for today, and why is this important for me? So the subject matter for me today is to talk about one of the other big reasons that I think I went through this this period of quite intense change and questioning, and that is my experiences as a small business owner, specifically owning a gym. I've spoken a bit about the gym in I think the first episode, and I think we're going to speak about it a bit more today from the point of view of the last couple of years through COVID, and then entering into voluntary liquidation, which happened just last year. What I've got to be mindful of here is that process is still ongoing, so I'm not going to talk about the nuts and bolts of it. Not that I've done anything wrong, but I simply want to talk about the emotions that came up and the stresses and pressure I was under throughout that time, with the intention of sharing that in such a way that helps you if you're going through something similar, and to give you kind of tangible things to take away from that experience that I have learned from it. And I guess to say, like, me sharing this very much so, as I was speaking to a friend about it the other day, is very part of my own healing journey. So whilst some of this may be messy, it may sound kind of a bit all over the place, I'm recognizing that this is really an essential part of me healing, because I've got to take some meaning from these experiences, and the meaning has to be putting this out into the world and going, right, this is what happened. Don't let it happen to you. Or if it does happen to you, here's how to kind of navigate it. So yeah, I would say, before I get into the detail today, I will be talking about my mental health. I will be talking about depression. I will be talking about kind of real dark moments. So just be mindful of that. And so hopefully, again, like, there's some purpose to it, but just be conscious that I am going to dig into those things a bit today. This matters to me for the same reason as really everything else I'm doing as a coach, or as a man in my life now, is that I don't want anyone to go through this, and if you do go through it, I want to help you find a way out of the side of it that helps you live a more defined, fulfilled, authentic, whatever it is, life the other side of it. So that's really the goal here. And I think the lesson for today, and this is the lesson here, is no job, no career, no business is worth you suffering and sacrificing your own mental and physical health for. It really isn't. And I think we live in this hustle and grind kind of era where it's kind of like almost um, put on a pedestal that it's okay to do that. Oh, yeah, I'm just grinding away, hustle, hustle. It's just bullshit. It really is. Like you can still be effective, contribute and provide something to this world without sacrificing yourself. And the fact that we live in a culture where it's says otherwise, it doesn't make it right. It doesn't. And I think again, this goes back to again the kind of that inner thing in me going like, well, look, if this was right, if this hustle and grind thing was right, everyone would be happy. But they're not. People are, a lot of people are really unhappy with their lives, with what they're doing, with the sacrifices they're having to make. So, don't get me wrong, if we're all skipping around and it's all like butterflies and rainbows out there, you could tell me to shut up, but it isn't. So I'm going to stand here and, put my flag in the ground and saying, no, hustle and grind's bullshit. And if you're doing that, if you believe that, then you're just, you're fooling yourself. And at some point, you'll recognize that you've wasted a significant amount of time and your health for something that doesn't really matter. Especially if you're in like a corporate role or something like that. It's kind of like that thing of, you give your life to it. But what I recognize, especially from the police, was, one day after you're gone, you're replaced. So stop thinking that what you do is so bloody noble that you it's okay for you to sacrifice yourself. It really isn't. So here we go. Let's start telling the story of the gym and the last few years. And we're going to kind of go through some bits and pieces here now. So I opened the gym back in 2013 with Dan. I covered a lot of this in episode 1. We both shared the same goal of having our own business. But we completely came from a place of being unconscious about what owning and opening and running your own business was like completely like oblivious to it. I was in the police then. I think Dan was a PT and he was doing some other kind of work, but we just didn't have any idea. And I guess I have no regrets about it, which I'll talk about now, but it's I think when you come at something from a place of complete ignorance, you just go all in on it. And it was almost like quite a beautiful thing actually. And also what I want to say before I start talking about this today is that I compare the business in my head now to like a relationship. And I kind of see it. We went through different stages. The initial honeymoon period was like, oh, we've got our own gym. This is amazing. We're like working out there all the time. Then there's like the middle bit, which is a struggle, but there's still some purpose and there's still some fulfillment. And then the end bit, which, not every relationship ends like this. And I'll say that, but the end bit got a bit bitter and twisted. And, I held on for too long. And I think the key concept here is the idea of the sunk cost fallacy with the business, which is that I'd invested so much time and energy and effort into it. I was like holding out for this like utopian point that I would actually get to. And it clouded me from thinking clearly about the fact that, well, that's probably never going to come and you're better to cut your losses. But again, I guess that happens in a lot of relationships and a lot of businesses, right? We're so invested in it because we think we think that this life should be fair, that this should go how we thought it was going to go, and we lack the ability to kind of think clearly and objectively because we're so tied up emotionally in these things. So a big lesson there for me. But anyway, what I want to get at here is, as I look back on this now, I want to be clear that I have no regrets about having the business. I do have regrets about the last couple of years, about not listening to my gut more. But the experience of coaching people over those years has enabled me to be here where I am now and to build the skills to coach people. And I coach hundreds of people from different walks of life. And I genuinely feel like I've made a significant difference to a number of people. And so how can I regret that? I can't. It's been a beautiful, amazing thing. And as I kind of visualize those people, they kind of pop into my head. And if you're one of those people, you'll know that I'm thinking about you right now. So how can I regret that? Because I'm so appreciative of that opportunity. I just got some great memories as well. Like especially in the early days, we had such a great community. It was such a great time. There was ups and downs like any business, but I look back on that now with really fond memories. And lastly, for me, I have made lifelong friends through that business. And I think if you've never experienced what we were in the early days, which was like a CrossFit gym, which I'll talk about in a minute, it's a real community vibe. And because of that, I was pulled in forcefully into this group friendship with some guys who changed me and changed the world forever. So again, how can I regret that? Because I would probably still be in the police grinding away doing a job I didn't like if I hadn't have made this decision, and I certainly wouldn't be here now speaking my own truth out into the world. So yeah, no regrets about that. I guess the big regret for me, which I'll talk about today, is probably the last couple of years and being stubborn and listening to my ego way too much. So yeah, so story of the gyms. We opened back in 2013. We're originally what was called a CrossFit gym. So CrossFit is like high intensity functional fitness. Functional fitness. I don't know what functional is really now, but there was like high intensity group training, and then we transitioned, and that was another thing to talk about. That was why we did that and what we thought at the time. You know, is what it is. We transitioned from being this kind of like group training gym into more holistic individual design, which was more like personal training, I guess you'd say. But it was really, I'll be honest, it was really me driving that, because it's where I wanted my own coaching to go, because I didn't just want to coach fitness anymore. I wanted to coach like nutrition, I wanted to coach lifestyle, and I wanted to coach people in a significant way to help them improve every aspect of their lives. Because with CrossFit, I felt it was very surface level. People would come along, they'd get a sweat on, then they'd go home, and that was almost like the easy bit. But I wanted to help people with the messy bit outside of that, and I couldn't do that. It's a CrossFit gym, and so I was pushing for the idea of this transition. And you know, hindsight's a wonderful thing. Would I have made that transition now? I don't know, but there was some lessons to be learned from it. But it was definitely me pushing that. So pre-COVID, we were doing really well as a business. We were only a very small space, but we were doing really well. We had a waiting list of probably about 30 people at one point waiting to join our gym. And it was going really well. But because of our size and the business model we're in, we were really limited about the amount of more money we could generate in the business. So Dan and I at this time, about a year before COVID, started having these discussions about, right, how can we go our separate ways? Not that we weren't getting on, not that we, were at each other's throats, but it was just like a commercial decision. How do we get to where we want to get to actually better afford or, earn the income we want to, support ourselves and our families? And so we kind of started those discussions pre-COVID to kind of make that separation. And that kind of the ball was rolling with that as we went into COVID. And then COVID hit, and we were based near Gatwick Airport. So what happened, like a lot of gyms, we lost probably about 75% of our members like overnight. And it was a scramble. It was a scramble to just try and hold on to people and to try and retain them and to provide value to them through this really difficult time. It was horrendous. And if you were a gym owner through that time, you're going to remember what it was like. We were open, you were closed, and I think we opened for like 24 hours at one point, and they closed us again. It was like insane. So we went into COVID, we lost all of our members pretty much. And so I was scrambling and was completely consumed by that point by trying to keep the business going, because front of mind for me was still that this was going to be my business, and I was going to try and buy Dan out and go our separate ways. So this was, it's still in my heart. I was like, well, okay, this is going to be my business. I can then do what I want with it. And in that, I took on too much, and I tried to look after a number of people through COVID in terms of coaching them. And I definitely became, I think, more of a therapist than a coach for many people. And I didn't have the skills or the tools for that. And I was unable to effectively create boundaries and barriers around those relationships at a time, so it didn't seep into my own personal story or my own kind of identity. I think what I struggled with, and what the lesson from it was, is that when you're a coach, coaching is largely about caring and empathy, and it's really hard to do that from a distance. But if you want to be an effective coach, you've got to do that. You've got to kind of go, well, this is me as a coach performing this role, showing empathy, caring, but I still need to be able to walk away from that and go, right, this is me, Glenn, as a dad, as a partner, as a friend. Because if you don't, if you blur those lines, then you have those, negative conversations or those draining conversations, and it affects you as a person. And that was really hard, because it really clouded me and stressed me out through COVID, to be quite honest. And everyone else is like baking bread. Now, get me wrong, a lot of people were really struggling and suffering too, but I was kind of like working probably more than ever through that time. And to give some context to my home situation, we'd had Adeline back in December 2019. So she was like 4 or 5 months old. We were away from our families, and I was just an awful, awful partner. I just wasn't showing up. And I guess, putting this out there into the universe without trying to just create a sub story. That's probably one of my biggest regrets, is that I didn't show up at that time, and I wasn't a good dad. I wasn't a good partner, because I just wasn't there. I was so consumed by the business and thought that was the most important thing. Whereas, were I to do that again, I would definitely, probably make some better decisions around it. But it is what it is now, isn't it? So uh, safe to say, through COVID, I was pretty stressed, pretty burnt out, and still kind of persisted with the idea of kind of separating with Dan, and that kind of happened, which was cool. And then I was like, right, okay, this is my opportunity now. I can fully realize what I want this to be. And I think I made the mistake there of believing or assuming that probably many other people did this as well, is that post COVID it would go back to the way it was, which was, we were full, we had people queuing up to join, we were like smashing it, doing really well. And so I kind of based everything on the growth outside the other side of COVID as being like that. And that led me to kind of take a bit of a calculated risk, I guess, from what I thought was a good idea at the time, to like actually double the footprint of the gym. Because the problem before was is that we couldn't fit more people in, but if we doubled the space of the gym, so you can double the amount of people you get in there, help more people, earn more money, have a great life, yada yada yada. And that is what I thought. And I guess, I'm not going to beat myself up for it, because none of us knew this was coming. None of us knew what was the other side of it. And based on where we were pre-COVID, why would I not assume that once people were able to go back to the gyms, they wouldn't want to go back, and that, the local economy would recover quickly? But then what happened, this is not a spoiler alert, is that, it didn't go the way I wanted. Like it just didn't grow. Like we opened the doors again, and where we were locally in Gatwick, from the airport, I think the economy around there still now is struggling. It may be getting busier, but I think the big thing that happened around there was that we had a lot of like offices and a big kind of commercial business area. And obviously there's been that transition since COVID, in that many people are doing this hybrid working now. And so people who were traveling into Gatwick to work weren't traveling anymore, and they were just working at home. And people had got used to working out at home, which I think which is actually a great thing. I think I love the fact that it's actually changed now, but I didn't see that change coming. I thought, cool, people were going to come back, etc., etc. And on top of that, we were a premium, higher end kind of product in the fitness market. Individual coaching, etc., etc. It's not going to be the same as joining a Globo gym. And so, looking at the economy and what's going on, people coming out that back of COVID, like, there's a number of things there, and I'm not blaming those external. They were contributory factors, but ultimately the fault lays with me, and not being able to kind of prepare for that and to think clearly about it. But is what it is. It's done now. So really, what I'm getting at here is the last couple of years as a business owner were like scrambling, just trying everything, doing all the marketing crap, all like the Facebook bullshit ads and the really cringy stuff that I can still feel myself saying these things. And like on the inside, I felt like a bit of me was dying every time I was having to do it because they were so inauthentic to me and what I wanted to do is as a business owner and as a coach genuinely. But I was like, well, look, if this is what I've got to do, this is what I've got to do. And so I was just in panic mode. We just every month trying to do different things. And I kind of made some, I don't know, not poor decisions, I guess you'd say, but I made the decisions that I thought were the best at the time purely because I was panicking and I wasn't able to take a step back and think about any kind of strategic plan of what to do. And, the thing to note at that time is that I run in the business by myself. So I was alone in it, and there's nothing worse than struggling alone in business. So whilst I probably wouldn't ever go into business with anyone again, there is some benefits in having a business partner or partners because you can share the load of the worry when you're going through tough times. But I guess the downside is that you've got to share the good side of it when you're going through the good times, right? And I just had no fight left in me, if I'm honest with you. Last year, I just was scrambling. You do one thing, you get knocked down, and then you try and get back up and go, okay, how do I make a bit more money to cover that bill? Or, because the other thing to talk about here is it's not just that we didn't grow. It's like the cost of running the business just went up like 3-4-fold. And this just wasn't just the cost of the extra space. That was certainly something, but then it was the increased cost of utilities. And it's just insane. And I don't know how many small businesses are keeping going right now. I can only imagine that there are probably many small business owners, gym owners really struggling right now. And if you're doing well, like great, I really want that for you. But I do feel in my heart a lot of sympathy for those who are probably going through something similar, because having your own business isn't just like a job. You give yourself to it and you become attached to it. You become attached to the success or failure, and you somehow link that to your own self-worth, which we'll talk about in a bit. And so to know that that isn't working and that you're failing is a really hard thing to it's a really bitter pill to swallow. And that's where I was. And I guess last year I just recognized a couple of things that, well, I had no more energy to keep going. I couldn't fake the energy to do another campaign, do this and do that. And if I'm honest, I'd had a feeling in my gut since COVID started that the gym wasn't what I shouldn't be doing anyway. And it sounds really wooey, and I make no apologies for this, but I think since I had that moment, if you listen to episode 1, that moment at Ibiza when I kind of had this transformational experience of like how I wanted to live my life and how I wanted to help other people live their lives, I kind of recognized that I was never going to be able to achieve that in a gym setting, because the expectation of someone when they come to a gym is very surface level, right? They want to improve body composition, etc., etc. They want to improve their fitness. But for me as a coach, I kind of felt like I was never going to be able to make the impact I wanted to with that as a vehicle. And I guess the ironic thing is now that I'm now stepping into recording these and speaking about these experiences, is that I'm recognizing that this is that vehicle. This is the opportunity for me to do that. And through my coaching now in an individual way, that's truly how I can have that impact in the world that I want to make. And it probably was never the gym, but as I'll go on to talk about in a bit here, there was bits of me that resisted that and didn't want to accept that and listen to it. But I probably should have done a couple of years ago. In fact, I definitely should have done a couple of years ago. I should have kind of listened to that feeling and gone, right, okay, this isn't in your heart what you want to do, but I didn't. I was a stubborn dick, basically. I'm very stubborn. So that's really the story. Like, we went into COVID, we were doing really well. Come out of COVID, it didn't recover. We were just scrambling. And then end of last year, I was like, okay, this is not good. And so kind of put the company into voluntary liquidation. How did this feel? And I'm sharing how this felt because if you are feeling like this should be your wake up call to not go to that place that I went to to make a decision now that prevents you from going to that rock bottom place, which is what I think I was. In fact, exactly this time last year, I felt like I was constantly being knocked down. I spoke to someone about what they were going through the other day, and they described it really similarly in the feeling of what it must be like to drown and to feel like you're like you take a breath, you're just enough above the water enough to take a breath, and then something else tries to pull you back down. You fight that off, scramble up, take a little breath, and then back down you go. And it was just a relentless feeling for the last couple of years of that, and so it just completely clouded. It completely clouded my ability to think clearly about what was the best decisions for me as a guy, as a coach, as a man, as a husband, as a dad. And I was just in panic mode. And I guess that's part of it, isn't it? When you're in that kind of fight or flight mode, you're not able to take the step back and go, okay, what's actually best here? Because you're getting punched every day. So you can't really like sit in a calm meditative state when you're just scrambling to try and survive. And so that was one of the feelings. And this really again restricted or inhibited my ability to enjoy anything in life truly. It was just there in my head whenever I was around Addy, as outside of work, working out. It was like boom, 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 boom. It's not a good feeling. So if you're experiencing any of this right now, then I obviously sympathize, and hopefully through this you can kind of take some positive action and believe that there is a way out, because there certainly is. I just, if you're in that moment, you can't kind of see it. And one of the things I really want to talk about now is what I did to try and cope with those feelings and how I tried to numb it. And I'm being quite, I guess, I've been really honest and vulnerable in these things, and I guess this is the next part of that. And so there's some resistance in me now to talk about it, but I want to do it, so I'm going to just do it. So how did I numb myself? Well, that was through drink, it was through drugs, and it's through food. I would say drink mainly. I remember at the start of lockdown, we got shut down, and I went via Tesco's and I bought a lovely bottle of bourbon. I think it was either like a Woodford or Bullet. Lovely stuff. And got home, and that probably lasted me about a month, so it wasn't too bad. I do a bit every night, considering what was going on. It's not too bad. But then, if you've got if you're addictive personality like I have, then that that got a lot worse. And so, start of lockdown, it's probably like one a month. Towards last year, when I made these decisions and had this period of change, it was probably about one a week. And that's a significant amount because I'm a lightweight. It doesn't take much for me to get drunk. So I was like, having the whiskeys every night, and it'd numb me. I'd pass out, I'd better go to sleep, I'd switch off, and that was the thing. And then drugs for me too, not so much through COVID because I was at home and things like that. But then post COVID, I've had some problems before with cocaine, and it was. As I talk about drugs, I want to do this in such a way to present a balanced view of it, because equally there's been experiences I've had through drugs that have changed my life, and I'm a big advocate of things like psychedelics and stuff like that as a way to kind of explore your kind of yourself and your own journey in a really positive way. But then for me, there's been some real negatives, and definitely the drug of choice in terms of like a negative behavior for me was cocaine. And so I'd previously gone through some treatment for that pre-COVID, so I'd kind of come out the back of it, but still there's a couple of occasions after, and nothing good ever came of that. Like, it makes you feel anxious. It made me feel horrendous. But again, it was like another numbing thing. So I think the drink was the main thing, drugs a little bit, but then the other thing to talk about, again, which I feel weird sharing this with you, being someone who's a coach, and especially someone who's a nutrition coach, is that I was just binging on like shit food all the time. Like I have I have a sweet tooth. I have probably a sugar problem, which is actually getting better and better, but it's still something that's there. And what I've noticed is the better I am mentally, the better able I am to make decisions around food and sugar and things like that in life. But when I was in that low mental place, I was just self-soothing through these things, and food was a part of that. And so, every night I was going home, big bag of peanut M&Ms, and I don't just mean the little bag. I mean the one that says more to share, and you're like, not fucking sharing that. Or it was like the Ben and Jerry's with the other one, or the the other thing I remember doing. I'm sharing this is that at the start of COVID, I have a problem with Reese's peanut butter cups. All right, it's a real issue. I was like, shit, I'm going to get Reese's from? But luckily for me, Amazon sold them in bulk. It's great. So it's like, fine, if I buy, I know it's like 30, 40 packs of the cups, they'll last me ages. And convinced myself that would be okay. So they arrived, big box of them, and literally like 7 days later, I don't know. Like I started off well. I remember the first couple of days, like couple with my coffee, and then it cascaded. So that was what I was doing, self-soothing. So the lesson here for me is that when people come to me now and they say I have a problem with this, I think it's largely linked to what's going on inside and your own kind of mental health. I was fully conscious of what I was doing and that it was bad for me, but equally I was looking for a way to numb myself and to feel better. And so that's what helped me do that. And then my mental health, and I want to talk about this now. And again, I want to be honest with you and stepping into kind of being really open here. And I don't want to trigger you in any way, or so if me talking about this makes you feel uncomfortable, then maybe skip forward 5 to 10 minutes. At that lowest point, I would say like this time last year, the feeling I had was like the walls in my life were closing in. I felt like a complete failure in every aspect of my life, as a business owner, as a dad, as a partner, as a son, as a brother, as a friend, everything. There were other things going on outside of the gym in terms of my personal life as well. But really, the gym was probably the big part of that, and the business. And it just caused me to feel like the walls were closing in, and it just felt like a failure. And I remember having these numerous moments, and I don't want to share this to sound over dramatic, but I want to share it because if you are feeling like this, you need to know that you will get through it. You've got to take some steps. You've got to ask for help. You've got to reach out. But I just remember feeling like I was on this horrendous ride. I can only describe life as being like this horrendous, like roller coaster ride of shit. And the only thing I thought for numerous occasions was like, I just wanted to get off the ride. And I couldn't see a way to do that. And so that led me to have some really dark moments about how can I get off this ride. And a few times there only felt like one way to do that. And yeah, it's hard when you felt like that. And it's hard now when you hear other people speaking about it, and people speak about it so bluntly. It's like, well, it's so selfish you think like that, or you just make yourself feel better. It's like you can't. In that moment, you feel so smothered by this cloud of negativity that the only thing you want it to do is just stop, and you don't know how to make it stop. And so the only thing you think you have within your power to make it stop is just this one really extreme choice. And so that was definitely my rock bottom. That was definitely my rock bottom last year. And so I'm sharing that with you again, not in any way to create sympathy, but if you are feeling that, if that's in any way how you feel right now, I want you to know that you can and will get through this, but you need to ask for help. You really do. You've got to ask for help. You've got to start speaking to people, because I internalized it all, and that caused so many more problems. So moving on from that rather not cheery point, I want to kind of get into now my lessons from this that I hopefully will move forward and help you kind of learn what I learned from this. And if you resonate with anything here, then hopefully you'll resonate with some of these lessons and these principles, and you might be able to take away from this and not experience those same lows that I got to. And I guess that's why I'm sharing the lows, is because like I don't want you to fucking get there, because you don't have to if you take action before you get there. Okay. So first thing for me, and I think this is more a masculine problem. I don't know. I think in my coaching time over the years, I've found that men, in my experience, have a lot more trouble with this than women. Women seem to be a lot more open to change and questioning themselves and unpacking that. But men, in my experience, are so caught up in their ego, and your ego will completely cloud your ability to make good decisions actually for you. It will tell you need to hold on because you don't want people to see you a failure. It will tell you to keep going because that's what you should do. It completely inhibits your ability to think clearly, and it completely inhibits your ability to accept help and recognize that change needs to happen. And again, this is maybe more from a coaching point of view, is that I've had so many conversations, and I'm sharing this now. And if you're one of these people, like, take note. I'm talking about you, but I'm talking about you because I fucking care. Like, if people got over themselves and got past their ego, they could actually get to where they want to get to. But until that happens, you're just going to be doing the same thing over and over again, thinking that that is the solution. But really, it isn't. Your ego isn't you. The way I would describe it is an aspect of us, and in some ways it can serve us, but in many ways I would say it's the worst part of us, because it just evokes this kind of horrendous notion that you can't be open, you can't change, and that that failure makes you a bad person. And the lesson for me from all of this and from getting past my ego is that failure is a part of life, and I have learned so much from these moments, probably more so than I would have done if it had been successful. And it's a part of life, and we need to view it so that we can see failure come in, meet it head on, embrace it, and go, okay, what's the lesson here? What happened? How can I learn from this? Rather than digging our heels in, go, no, I'm not going to fail. I don't want people to see me as a failure. So yeah, if you feel like that's you probably won't even feel like it's you because you're so deep into it. You're like, no. But if you do, please just tell that ego to fuck off. It's not doing anything for you right now. If you are suffering, all right, if you are suffering and you're conscious of that, but you're listening to this feeling of kind of, I don't know, this awful like voice in your head, then you can take action there, believe me. Secondly, the other big thing for me is sacrifice. I told myself that the hustle and grind were all okay because this is what you're supposed to do as a business owner. This is part of the course. We're supposed to do that. I'm supposed to sacrifice myself for this greater good. And obviously that's bullshit. And I felt like such a walking contradiction as well, because I'm trying to tell people how to live a healthier life, and I'm doing all this shit to really affect my own life and health negatively. But I justified it because, well, this is what you're supposed to do. If I help these other people live a healthy life, I throw myself on the cross for them, which is a crazy way to think about it. I remember at times at my lowest point, I don't know if you've ever had this, where your eyes kind of twitch, and there's generally a sign that you're kind of quite stressed. I remember going for months on both my eyes were like just twitching all the time. I'm like, this is not good. And mainly I was just conscious of people noticing my eyes twitching. And because of this sacrifice, I think I lost so many moments that I missed out on, especially with Addy. And I put a post up the week on this, and it's really hit home to me recently. I've lost those moments, but I'm conscious now of the moments I do have. And so I guess why I'm telling you this is, don't sacrifice those moments, because especially if you have children, they go so quick. And you can see every time I see her, she's a little bit more sassy, a little bit more grown up, a little bit less of like a baby, if you want to call it that. And I missed out on so many of those opportunities and those moments. So I don't want that for you. And I guess the lesson here is I believe that it's definitely okay to work towards a goal, to pursue a passion, to have a craft, and to find your calling, and to contribute, and to work hard. Like, it's good to work hard and to do that, but um, it should never be at the expense of what matters most. It shouldn't. Again, I hate. I'm leaning into the fact that I'm being quite maybe judgy in some of the things I'm saying in these podcasts, but fuck me, like, work should never matter more than your family. It shouldn't. And if you think that, your fucking priorities are wrong. And there's no other way to say it. So, if you turn off here and never listen to me again, then, well, that's fine. You go for that. But just let's see how that works out for you. Lastly, and this is a big thing for my big lesson for me, which I want you to hopefully listen to, and it's surrendering. I think I said here, I knew in my gut for a couple of years this wasn't right. I knew, I could feel like there was something pulling me gently, going, look, hey, don't do this. You're meant to do something else, right? And I felt that at the start of COVID, right? You know, this is your opportunity to walk away. I remember feeling it, and I didn't listen to it, and my ego was like, no, I can do this. I can do this. I want to do this, and I kind of convinced myself, but I didn't. And the universe, I guess I'd describe it as that the universe pulled gently at first. And then if you don't listen to the universe, you don't kind of surrender to it, at some point what the universe is going to do is going to punch you right in the face and make you have to make that decision. Regardless, and that's where I'm at, so I'm out here now. I feel like I'm contributing in the highest possible way I can by having these conversations and speaking this out into the world. And this is where I'm absolutely supposed to be. But I resisted it, and it took the universe punching me in the face repeatedly before I got over myself and made that decision. But here's the thing, here's the beautiful thing. I don't get emotional on here, but as soon as I did make that decision, it was like a shift. It was like this beautiful shift. And I'm not saying I've got it all figured out. I'm not saying like life is, rainbows and butterflies for me purely at the moment, but from definitely from the outer level, I'm still going through this transitional thing, but in the inner world, in terms of how I feel in myself, the peace I have day to day, the excitement I have to get up and do this and to work and to have conversations with the people I coach now, is like, I've never experienced that in my life. And that's only come from me surrendering and going through this and enduring this time and getting to this point. And I guess the lesson here is, listen to that, listen to your gut, because you probably have those feelings in your gut and you're just, for whatever reason, you're not honoring it. But I want you to go for it. I want you to make a daring decision. I want you to be bold and be brave and take risks and take chances, because I believe it's only through taking those risks and those chances and listening to the universe that you're going to get to a place where you're fulfilled. So I want to finish on a bit of resistance, and I know that I kind of sound like I'm on my soapbox here, and that for many of you listening to this, if you're in a place and job where you're unhappy, you're going to naturally say, look, you don't understand my position. I've got mouths to feed, and I really appreciate that. You've got a family, you've got responsibilities. But I guess my immediate response to that is, would your family rather live a more frugal life and have you around for another 20, 30 years? Or would they rather have the life you have built and only have you around for another 3 to 5 years? I think that's the question you've got to ask yourself. There's always an option. There's always a way where you can make changes. And I don't believe that there ever isn't. I think it's a construct we build for ourselves. It's a construct that society tells us that, it creates kind of, a prison for ourselves, in that we believe we haven't got a way out, but we always have a choice. And here's the thing for me, is I could feel when I was at this lowest, at this most stressed, I'm a coach, I'm a fitness coach, a health coach. I could feel the years being stripped back off me. I could feel it. I was conscious. I was like, oh, fuck, this isn't good. Waking up every day with your eyes twitching is not good. Binging is not good. I could feel my heart beating out my chest sometimes. I was like, this isn't good. So no thing in the world is worth sacrificing your health for. Maybe with the exception of, the one situation B is like, you throw yourself under a bus to save your child. Fuck it, go for it. Do that 100%. That's a worthy sacrifice. But there's no other thing that's like worth sacrificing your health for. There really isn't. If you want to show up and be the best parent, the best partner, the best person possible, then you need to kind of honor that. And part of that is creating a bit of balance in this world and putting those things first over and above your profession or your business. So where am I now? Every story has got to have a happy ending, right? And I'm still writing this, and I'm accepting that having gone through this, it will take me time to process it, and part of me processing it is sharing it with you. So I hope you appreciate that, and I hope you get some value in it. And there has to be some good from this. And I think for me, a big part of this is sharing this in the hope that if you're listening to this, you're like, oh, yeah, that's me. Maybe now's the time to take action, because I really don't want to go through that kind of period of time. And I want to tell you that I guess the bright side of this is that having gone through it, endured this, I'm living a more authentic and fulfilling life day to day now than I've ever done in my 42 years on this planet. Okay. And so I'm learning and accepting that what I need to do now really is to help others kind of navigate this period in time and this transition that they might go through in these periods of stress and change where they want to kind of figure out what is next. So if you're struggling and something is wrong and you can't figure out how to make it right, I would say a couple of things that would be beneficial for you to do, which are really things that have really helped me, is to really firstly understand your own values, like truly your values behind all the bullshit of what we're told we should aspire to in this life or what we should value. What do you value? What are the things that light you up inside in terms of, if you could do anything in this world, any kind of job, profession, craft, creative endeavor, whatever it is, what is it you would do regardless of expectation about what you should and shouldn't do? What would that be? And then the trick or the goal is to work towards a place where you can find a way to get compensated for that thing. Secondly, I think it's really important, and what I neglected at this time is just sticking to looking after your body, being active every day, be mindful of what you put in your body as much as you can, and to try and just keep to sound principles of like self-care, for whatever it's not really a term I like, but sleep and moving and getting outside and taking time off work. So never neglect those principles, because those principles of self, of looking after your body, being mindful of what you're putting in it, trying to create some rhythm in life, and lastly create the mental space to help you think clearly about what you're doing, I think is key if you're struggling. I think it really is. And this sounds really I don't know, maybe idealistic, but I believe that if enough of us go through this change, either hopefully through voluntarily doing this without having to have gone through the suffering, then I think we can genuinely change the experience that many people have in this world. And that's got to be the thing we want to do, right? We want everyone, not just ourselves, to have a better experience here. I certainly do. This isn't just about me, obviously, because I'm not sharing this for me. I'm sharing this for you. So I want you to have a better experience for this. And I think if you take the bull by the horns and live your life like this, then you're going to show that to the people around you. You're going to show that to your children. You're going to show that to your friends, your family, and just show them, hey, look, you can actually live a bit differently and actually have a good life. And there's going to be stress and struggle. That's part of it, but you can find fulfillment and not hate your day-to-day life. So let's go and try to do that, right? So cool. Thanks for listening. I appreciate you taking the time to do this today, and always, and taking time out of your busy life to listen to me waffle on. I hope you've got some value in it. Again, some raw things me talking about, and if you feeling like a bit meh right now, then please know that this comes from a place of genuine love, and that I want to help you and help everyone who listens to this. So yeah, cool. Please like and subscribe to the channel. And if you've got any feedback for me, and I've had some really lovely feedback and some constructive feedback too, which is what I want as much as anything else, then please reach out to me. You can do that on Instagram at Coach Glenn Oliver, or email coachglennoliver@gmail.com. It's Glenn with one N. All right, no judgment there if you use two, but you're not going to get through to me if you do that. And yeah, so catch up with you next week. Take care. Bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to the podcast with me today. I just wanted to say I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy life to listen to me. And if you found value in it, please subscribe to the channel. And if there's anyone you know who would benefit from listening to this, please share the podcast and help others who may be going through this. Thank you so much.